Hello there, and welcome to Community Life. Here we talk with the community experts about their life journeys and how they came into the community world. Today we have a conversation with Steve Garguilo, a person of action, a Mongolian rally participant, ex-owner of Jurassic Park car, a former head of creative engagement in Johnson&Johnson when he ran one of the first corporate TEDx events, TEDx J&J, author of the book Surge, your guide to put any idea into action, and founder at Cultivate. So, hello, Steve.
Hello, Yuri. Yeah, I need you to introduce me every time I go into a room somewhere. That's great. Thank you.
Just send me a message. I'll be there for you. Okay, I saw a photo where you were with Chris and Michelle. So, for how many people you've been a marriage officiant?
That was my brother and now sister-in-law, and so that's the only wedding that I've officiated. It was originally set to be in fall 2020, for a proper wedding, and then they decided to do it would just be an elopement essentially. Like it was literally just the two of them, me and a photographer, and so we did that in fall of 2020 in the Rocky Mountains, and then in the fall of 2021 they did like a renewal with actually getting to invite family and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I am a certified wedding officiant, a certified minister at one of the ministries that you can just get that certification online. That was a lot of fun.
How you decided to do it? Why you?
I mean, they asked me, which is I'm very honored that they asked me to do that. I think they asked me because they knew that I would I think they probably asked me out of love. We have a great relationship. I have a very close relationship with my younger brother. And then they probably also knew that I would put in the work to make it serious yet also fun and have a good time. And so I think we struck the right balance there. It was good.
Cool. So let's start from the beginning. Tell me about your parents. Who are they?
Yeah, so my mom is the hardest working person I ever met in my life. I've been in search of a harder working person and have yet to find one. She spent her entire career in newspapers. She did get her master's degree in education, but could never afford. In the U.S., you have to go do teaching. You have to basically go do unpaid teaching in public schools for some X number of months, and there was never a period that she could do that. So she spent her entire career in a newspaper, starting first as a journalist and then as an editor. My dad was also in the newspaper business. That's where they met when he was a sports journalist, and then ended up, running a circulation department. So they're both curious and fact finders and synthesizers and curators of information, right? And they're both loving parents to three kids, and we grew up in a very, reasonably small town in central Pennsylvania. So,
Do you know how they met? So they were working together, but exactly how they met. What was the point when this sparkle, started?
that's a good question. I don't know the exact. I know that they were working together. I know that my mom caught my dad's eye in the newsroom, and I can only imagine what in the 80s that was like working in a newsroom environment like that. And I guess at some point he had the courage to ask her out, and as they say, the rest is history. But
Yeah, and that's the story, how the story goes. And can you please tell an example of their curiosity? Why do you call them curious people?
yeah, I mean, I was more relating it just based on their profession, right? Their profession requires curiosity and going out and trying to find things and help people understand things. I'm trying to think of a good example of their curiosity. I think, I don't know, this is good. It's really making me reflect because I don't have one standard typical answer. I think, maybe one example would be my mom in the summer times in particular would run like kind of a daycare in our, area for kids and that kind of stuff. And I think she always promoted kind of the idea of curiosity and just like trying to expose us to different music and, different books and, going outside and playing and, that kind of stuff and just trying to open our minds. So, yeah, there's probably a bunch of examples that I need to reflect on more.
What curiosity means to you?
I think curiosity is feeding this hunger to know more and know more about things that you don't know about, and a genuine interest in chasing that down. Like you could meet someone out at a bar who's like, oh, like I manufacture light bulbs. And there are some people who would think, oh God, let me get out of this conversation as quickly as possible. For me as a curious person, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the best night ever. Like, how are light bulbs made? What does that mean? Like, what goes into it? So that's filament. Okay, so that's filament. So what about this? Okay, and then what type of glass? Oh, okay, right. Like, and just getting to dive in deep on something that you only have a narrow set of understanding around, I find to be enormously satisfying. Like, curiosity is this hunger that wants to get fed, in my mind.
Wow, it's like it feels like I would really love to talk with you about some deeper stuff. So I can definitely learn a lot from you. So wow, thank you for this answer. And
well, I think curiosity by nature maybe is this appreciation that we can all learn a lot from everybody. We can all learn a lot about anything. There's myriad things that people know so much more about than any of us individually can ever know. And so just trying to find that and pull on that thread and kind of, oh, okay, that's cool. Oh, really? And then you get to have these kind of related worlds, right? And to me, the connection then between curiosity and creativity is curiosity is about exploring all those different things, planting all those different seeds in your brain. And the result of that is creativity, because when you're trying to solve a problem, you're getting to draw from so many different kinds of things, right?
How does it connect to openness? Whether people are always open to talk about their ideas?
Yeah, I think openness is probably a critical ingredient to get your curiosity fed. So whether someone is open to that or not will be, evident of, are you getting kind of one word answers, or are you able to dive in? And I think, there are a lot of things that depend on that, like context and what mood you're in and kind of the level of trust and your environment and all that kind of stuff. I think there are probably situations when all of us are open, but yeah, some people maybe have a disposition to be more open or less open than others. I don't know.
What do you think is the cause of people's openness, except their mood and so on? Like, is it some kind of mindset to be open? So, yeah, just in general.
Yeah, I never thought about that before. I don't know. My hunch would say that probably a good amount of it has to do with experience. Like, I wonder, one, the degree to which we're conditioned to be open. So if you do have, an environment that is curious and asking questions and kind of being open, that probably influences it. I think two would be if you've ever been burned because of your openness before. And so, being vulnerable or sharing information and having that, weaponized against you or used in a way like might make you close up and kind of be more guarded and kind of less trusting, right? Yeah, and then probably, getting to fully see the, fruit of being open. If you've had the experience of, yes, because I have this approach, these kind of serendipitous things have happened, and so it's worth doing this. If those things haven't occurred in your life, that may influence kind of the level of openness you have as well. I don't know. I mean, how do you think about that?
it was just my another question. Let me ask you another question, and then
Okay,
I will
okay.
answer this. So another question was like, have you been hurt because of your openness and vulnerability?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure I have been. We've all been, like maybe hurt with a lowercase h or whatever versus like a, hurt. I can't think of a specific instance where there's been, you know, significant harm because of that. But I can imagine that, for some people there have been.
From my perspective, the question you asked me, from my perspective, is openness and curiosity connected super a lot, and the main problem is exactly a fear of being hurt. And if you take everything personally, it's super hard to be open. But if you can understand that it's not about you, it's maybe about the person or about the weather or about circumstances, or even if it's about you, it's just something you can fix, you can work over. So it's okay. But if you're afraid of being hurt, afraid of being vulnerable, I believe there is no openness at all. So that's kind of my thoughts. But we are not talking about me today. I would love to be a guest on your podcast, let's say. And let's continue to your brothers. You told that you
Sounds good. Or
have.
maybe what we should do is maybe sometime I can be a guest host on your podcast and interview you.
It would be
So
amazing. It would be awesome. So let's go to your brothers. You have a youngest one, and who is the oldest?
yep. So I have two brothers. My older brother Andy is a photographer, um, who right now is mostly focused on like styling and photography of like for products for e-commerce websites and that kind of stuff. My younger brother is a consultant for Deloitte, and yeah, we grew up in an environment of playing with each other, fighting with each other, getting mad about the result of a video game or whatever, right? But we have a good kinship and camaraderie between us.
What is the age difference between you?
My older brother is 4 years older than me. My younger brother is 3 years younger than me.
So it's practically the same. And you told that you fight a lot about video games. So what video game do you remember you fought too much?
I remember playing like sports game, like on the Sega Genesis, playing like, I don't know, like NHL 95, or playing, I think the baseball game we had was Hardball 3. And so you're playing, you're playing versus each other inherently, right? And so the controller sticks and this thing happens and you fight about the fact that they shouldn't have scored that run or scored that goal or do this, or or you push them and that caused an outcome in the game or that kind of thing. So I think it's the general kind of, loving fighting that brothers tend to do.
Have you ever broken a controller?
I've broken a controller. I don't think we've had controllers that have broken over time because they've been pushed so hard and that kind of stuff, but I don't think broken a controller, like smashed it or anything like that.
Yeah. So, okay. And what kind of troubles did you get into with your brothers?
Troubles?
Yeah.
Mm,
Three boys. You definitely had some troubles.
yeah, and I think most of those will probably leave out of the podcast, but I would say, generally speaking, we would have a good time getting to explore, learn with each other, all that kind of stuff. My older brother was in a band, and so we got to, go see his shows and that kind of stuff. He toured around the country for a while, which is really cool. And so that was fun as an experience together. And then my younger brother ended up having a lot of similar interests to me. So he would get involved in similar activities at school and that kind of stuff. So we would, spend a lot of time together and those kinds of things. And but I would say on the whole, we well behaved. We only got into the right amount of trouble. So
What kind of elder brother are you?
hmm. I mean, it's a question that should be directed to my younger brother,
From
but I
your
think
perspective.
from my perspective, I'm great. But I mean, the evidence of that would be like, what you opened with, right? Of, getting to officiate his wedding. But I think as an older brother, like one of my jobs is to try to like hold kind of a bar for him, and sometimes that can be frustrating, but I think on the whole that's appreciated. So as much as possible, I try to be someone who can be supportive and help him to have more success than I can have. So
You are all grown up now, so how do you still communicate with each other, like on daily, weekly, monthly basis?
yeah, so actually my older brother, I'm going to be at his house on Sunday. I'm going to be traveling in and bringing some steaks. Both of my brothers have birthdays in July. We're recording this in July, so my younger brother's birthday is July 10th. My older brother's birthday is July 16th. Actually, sorry, that's reversed, but July 10th and July 16th. And so, like on big occasions like that, we, make it a point to get to see each other. And then I think now, as kind of parents are getting older, we also spend time communicating, kind of talking about care and support for them and that kind of stuff. So that tends to be an excuse to spend time catching up. But yeah, typically like text thread communications, and then trying to make it a point at 3 or 4 times a year to like, let's make sure we're in the same city and we're sitting down and having a few beers and talking about life and all that good stuff.
What is your favorite beer?
Hmm. I mean, as a Pennsylvania product, I feel called to say Yingling, which is America's oldest brewery, and it's just a good kind of standard classic beer. So it's very basic, but it gets the job done.
Have you ever tried some kind of you've been traveling a lot. Have you ever tried some better beer somewhere outside the US?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, so much of beer is contextual, because beer connotes kind of by default like conversation, and progressively deeper conversation, progressively sillier conversation, maybe progressively kind of more fun depending on how much you have. And so like to me, beer is less about the taste than it is about the company, or the experience. Like I've certainly been in situations where like randomly a couple years ago, before COVID, before all the travel stuff got knocked out, I was traveling a ton, and I ended up stranded in Singapore for 12 hours. I wasn't planning on having this long layover in Singapore, and I texted one of my friends to just say, do you happen to be in Singapore right now? He's like, yeah, actually I'm here too. I'm like, perfect. And so we go out and we go to one of those places where you have like a beer tower and you just sit down and you're catching up and talking about Indonesian politics and whatever you can like talk about. And those are the best kind of days. That's just this random, unexpected thing. And so, yeah, I don't know about like a specific kind of beer and taste, but more the experience of beer is that to me.
It's a great idea. I guess we should have some couple of beer with other speakers in the future, so to make this experience even greater. And do you talk about politics a lot?
I think in the right contexts, yes. Like I think it's not something that I'm gonna naturally bring up in a situation where clearly that can shift what's happening. But especially when I'm traveling internationally, and especially when you're sitting down and and it's getting dark out, and you're kind of like, all right, like I want to ask about, yeah, so what's going on here? What's going on with this? And like I try to be just as informed enough about what's going on that it's like in a couple of weeks I'm going on vacation in Mexico, and we're meeting up with some friends, and like I definitely know enough to be like, yeah, so so what are your thoughts on AMLO and like, what's happening here? And like, yeah, this idea that he's this progressive leftist and yet at the same time it's this kind of authoritarian nature and he just talks all morning and kind of what's happening there and this, like corruption and and so being able to just dive into those and get different perspectives on stuff, I find to be one of the ways that my curiosity gets fed, right? And trying to connect those dots. There's actually this really awesome show on Amazon Prime called Pan y Circo, which is Bread and Circus. Mm-hmm. And what it is, it's the actor Diego Luna. He sits down with a group of like 5 or 6 experts on a topic over dinner. And just while they're eating and drinking, they're talking about, voting rights or women's rights or colonialism and imperialism or whatever, but it'll be like a nonprofit activist and a former president of a country and a journalist and like just a really cool group of people. And to me, one of my favorite things assembling a cool group of people and talking is like naturally you want to get to those kinds of things and just tease it out and expand your mind a little bit.
Are they talking about politics or in general?
Politics is part, like how could politics not be part of those conversations, right? So they're not talking about politics simply as X's and O's and this party is bad. The way politics gets talked about so frequently in the US is it's just sports team debates, right? Which sports team did you pick? And this one's good on everything and this one's bad on everything, right? Politics by nature is not so simplistic. It's not so binary. It's not, and so with filter bubbles and social media and all that stuff, it's easy for us to end up in this kind of sports team, type conversations around politics. Yeah. But to me, politics is diving deep into something and trying to really understand it and being open to the nuance of it and being open to having your mind stretched as you think about it. And sometimes stating things that you don't think just to get to see reactions and to hear, being willing to take different points of view so that you can, stretch your mind is the exercise that I appreciate as a non-practicing politician. So,
would you like to practice?
I don't think so. I think I don't know. I think maybe as community builders, I think probably one of the reasons that we get into this is this kind of like call to serve, right? This idea that we can serve a community of people who have similar interests and needs and desires and that kind of stuff. And so in some ways, it's maybe a more pure form of practicing politics that's not caught up in all these other systems because we get to create our own systems instead of trying to operate within one. But yeah, it feels like getting into the world of politics with a capital P is a losing proposition for most people who choose to do it. So.
Yeah. Let's jump a little deeper about yourself. So from what age do you remember yourself?
I think the very first memory I have is we rarely traveled or kind of went anywhere growing up, which I think is something that fed my desire to travel in my 20s. But my dad, as a big baseball fan, loved in the fall driving up to Cooperstown, New York, which is where the Baseball Hall of Fame is. And in upstate New York in the fall, all of the trees, the oranges and the yellows and the reds and all the colors of the trees and the mountains are really beautiful. And so he loved, trying to get us up there for a weekend. And I think my very first memory is a weekend when I could have only been like 3 years old, and I don't have a strong memory of it, but I have a memory of like the place that we were staying and kind of like being there. And I think it would have been sometime just shortly after my younger brother was born. And I remember there being like a shelf with like baby formula on it. And so I have this little halo of a memory, this little window of a memory, not a specific moment per se, but just like being there. And yeah, so I think that's my first memory. That's what I've told myself my first memory is. Anyway.
What is the clear moments that you remember right now from your childhood?
Yeah. Um, I don't know, all kinds of memories. One is I remember that I don't know when this was. Maybe I would have been 8 or 9 years old. The I think the Special Olympics does these tours around the country, kind of like I think it's in tandem with when the Olympics happened. So maybe this was when the '96 Olympics were in Atlanta. There was this kind of Special Olympics tour happening, and I just remember these big. They brought in these big ships into the harbor in Connecticut, and I remember going and getting to see these big ships. I think it was the first time I was ever on a boat. Um, and I love big things. I love seeing big buildings. I love getting to the top of big mountains. Anywhere that you can see a big view. That's why I like dinosaurs. I'm impressed by like scale and bigness, and I think it's really cool. And so I remember like getting onto this big ship was this just like really cool moment.
Yeah, big stuff. And how did you feel when you just entered this ship? So do you remember like what was your like wow moment or what it was like?
Yeah, I think the reason it sticks in my mind is probably just that feeling of awe. I think like a lot of life is chasing those moments of awe. You know, people use the word awesome a lot, but uh, awesome in by its technical definition is something that happens quite infrequently. It's actually like that feeling of awe. But to me, there's nothing better than walking into a space or being in this moment or kind of something happening that you really are awestruck. And I think that was this one where like walking onto this big thing and it's wobbly underneath you. You don't feel earth kind of the same way, and it's this kind of wooden ship, and there's this big like it's just probably that awe feeling and how cool that is.
What kind of student you were at the school?
Yeah, generally speaking, in school, you know, throughout a lot of school, I was much more straight laced than I kind of ended up being after school. Of the kind of the desire to feed my curiosity and explore different things, and the Mongol rally and that kind of stuff. In school, I was a little bit more of a rule follower and kind of get good grades, do the job, study, make stuff happen. And I think that was probably a product of my parents that instilled kind of very clearly like a good education is the key to anything, and so make sure to take that seriously. So throughout a lot of school, I was definitely focused enough on saying like, cool, make sure that you get good grades and do this stuff. And a lot of it wasn't super difficult for me. Like I enjoy that kind of stuff. I think the things that are difficult are like the parts of school that are just like memorization, memorize these dates, regurgitate this stuff. But I think the parts of school that I almost wish I took more seriously or would be interested in kind of going back and diving into are things that are conceptual, theoretical, conversational, right? Like getting to talk, read this book and like, what do you think this means? And like at the time, there was probably times that I would roll my eyes at that and like not be super interested in it. But now I'd probably be like super into it, right? So.
What was the moment when you started breaking rules?
I mean, I think we all break rules, or most of us, tend to break rules. I think when I was in college at Penn State, and even I ended up, graduating high school, deciding, okay, I'm going to go to Penn State to study in this information sciences program, because in high school I was a kind of geek who built I built our computer at home, and I liked that kind of stuff. I thought that would be fun, and I could see that could set me up for some kind of meaningful career. But I don't know where I first heard about it, but I found this program at school called Humanitarian Engineering and Social Entrepreneurship, which is very much this focus on like design for the developing world. And they were talking about, did you know one person dies every 27 seconds from smoke inhalation? Because in most places in the world, people will burn whatever is available, whatever trash is available to them to be able to cook some food. And so, we're focused on, how might we design a solid fuel stove that either has more complete combustion or channels smoke differently, in an effort to combat that problem. And on like getting to spend some time working on challenges like that, I think opened my mind that like, yeah, the world is a lot less black and white and oriented to rules. Rules are just systems other people created for their time and their instances. And we're focused on a different set of problems and a different set of times and a different set of instances. And so those rules by design can't be followed. Like it would be silly to follow them. It would be so limiting to do that. And so I think it was when I started getting involved in more of those like design thinking type experiences, getting to focus on real challenges, getting to stretch my brain to think about answers that aren't answers on a test of what year is this, that there's only one right answer, but problems for which there is not one right answer, and getting to really think about that. And I think once my life's work became solving problems that don't have one right answer, well, by design, you have to break a bunch of rules in pursuit of that.
What was your dream job back then?
Yeah, the first dream job I can remember as a young kid is wanting to be a meteorologist, wanting to be a weatherman, because I thought that was cool. I used to sit and watch the like local news every day and watch the weather, and I just thought that was fascinating. I think what I thought was fascinating about it was the idea of predicting the future. Like there was also this show that I really liked when I was a little kid called Early Edition. And it was about this guy who got tomorrow's newspaper today. And then he went and tried to save people, like to try to make it so that bad news wouldn't happen. And kind of the idea of predicting the future, shaping the future, influencing the future, I thought was really interesting. And now, having spent time, studying kind of how people talk about futures and the idea of multiple futures and what they can look like and this kind of stuff, I mean, I like that. And I think getting to influence that through behaviors and decision making and culture and that kind of stuff is more interesting to me than predicting scientific models, though I have tremendous respect for that. And my best friend, as it turns out, my best friend who has the same birthday as me, who I met in college, is a meteorologist. Who the think it?
Wow, just wow, What was, do you remember this feeling when you met your future best friend and when you discovered that he has the birthday at the same date as you have?
So we were both trying out for the marching band at Penn State. So at Penn State, you get there like a week early before other students to get to try out to be part of the marching band. And the marching band is, this 310 member group that goes out and performs for 110,000 people every week. So you go out into the stadium. It's like one of the largest venues of any kind in the world, and going out in front of 110,000 people that are all screaming and wearing white and all this kind of stuff. Like it's pretty. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Right? It's pretty cool. And so, of course, I didn't really know any of that when I was trying out. When I was trying out, it was just like, oh, I was in band in high school. Like, I'll try out for this. This would be cool. But it's reasonably competitive. And so, you start to make friends with some of the other people trying out. And this guy, Tim, was also a trumpet player. And I don't know, I think over time is when we realized, I think the birthday thing might have come much later, that we realized that, I think asking, oh, what are you studying? What are you studying? Oh, meteorology. Oh, that's cool. And that probably led to some conversation, right? But yeah, I think we hit it off. We liked rival baseball teams, so we had kind of that, going. And it's been fun. We've gotten to travel, and we like when we travel, going and finding the best Italian food anywhere, and just going and sitting down and eating Italian food and talking about whatever. It's fun.
Do you play trumpet right now? Like not right now, but now.
Occasionally, I still get the chance to play. it's rare now that I get to play. When I was, throughout school all the time, and then after I finished school, less so. When I lived in Switzerland for a couple of years, I was playing in this like Fastnacht band, and so you go out and dress up and just kind of do whatever. And then now that I live at the U.S.-Mexico border, I have this dream of like gringo mariachi and getting to play kind of mariachi stuff, but it's more of a dream than an executed reality at this point. So every now and then, but pretty rarely.
Why did you name your dog? I don't know if I'm correct. Choconosle?
Choconostle, yeah, Xoconostle.
Yeah.
Actually, it was from an episode of the show Top Chef. So I've gotten reasonably into Top Chef lately, not because I'm a gourmet cook or I could even imagine cooking with those ingredients, or that I even understand what they're talking about when they're saying, I've made this blah, 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 blah. They pick out totally new words that no one's ever heard of before when they name their dishes. But in one of the episodes, they had to cook with this like prickly pear cactus that is called choconostle. And I thought like, that's such a cool word. If I ever get a dog, I'm going to name the dog that. And like for 2 or 3 years, it stayed lodged in the back of my brain enough that like, yes, that's happening.
And when you want your dog to come to you, do you name the whole name or is like a shorter name?
Usually just Choco. Yeah, day to day, it's more Choco, which is, the first 4 letters. So, but if he's really in trouble, he gets the full name.
So like people, so like. Do you like posing for pictures?
Not so much, to be honest. I like taking pictures if it's a moment worthy of capture, though the picture never captures the moment. Like you go to the Grand Canyon and it's this, it's one of those awestruck moments, and you look at a picture and it's like, it doesn't look like anything. So I try to be more in the moment. And yeah, usually if I'm going to take a picture, I just take a picture of the space with not like me in it, because I don't know, I'm not as big into like pictures of me.
I noticed in your Facebook a great thing I will ask you about. So some people give free hugs and you gave free problem solving. What was it about and how did you decide to do it?
Yeah, so I think this was probably 2013. We were at South by Southwest, the Music Interactive Film Festival in Austin, Texas. And South by, I think the best way I've ever heard South by described is the week that it happens, it's the FOMO capital of the world, right? The fear of missing out capital of the world, where it's just, there's 8 billion different things happening and you're trying to pick, well, what's happening here? What's happening here? And so we're there, and I'm there with a really good friend of mine, Matt. And we also both really like Post-it notes, and saw 3M was there and they were giving out these big Post-it notes. So we took a bunch of them and we were deciding like, we have to do a project with these Post-it notes. And we just decided to like, we're sitting down at a bar, having a couple beers, talking about what we're going to do, and just decide to write on one of them, free problem solving, #0 problems. We put this big Post-it note hanging out the window so people from the street can see it. And we just start kind of accosting strangers of like, hey, if you have any problems in, business, life, horseback riding, welding, like you name it, we'll solve all of your problems. And at first it started out not super serious. People are like, does my shirt fit? And how would you tuck it in? Or like, I'm looking for this. But then slowly, like a line started to form. People are like, oh, this is kind of cool. It was like a thing, and people are like, I need this kind of light. Actually, like I need this kind of light bulb. And so we tweeted it out and like someone brought him that kind of light bulb. Or there was this woman from Goodwill, which is this chain of like consignment stores in the US. People donate clothes and they resell them. And she's like, how can we grow our brand? And I'm like, you have like 500 stores. How can you not grow your brand? At one store, triple your prices, see what happens. At one store, offer gift wrapping. At one store, have a recycling service. At one store, have a co-working space. And she's like furiously scribbling down, all these notes. It's like, she's like, can you help me come up with more ideas? And I'm like, I just gave you 10 ideas. Like, go do those, right? But like the whole thing was such a cool experiment in like to me, there's nothing more fun than like generating ideas and helping to make that happen. Of course, where the rubber meets the road on that stuff is people actually taking action on them, which is, you know, that experience, I think, was the thing that led us to decide to write the book and try to study like why that is, what that was. I think that's one specific moment with that Goodwill woman when she's like, "Can you do a workshop for this?" It's like, you don't need a workshop for that. Like that's not what you need. You need to just go do those things. Um, and yeah, and then I think we revived, like we did a podcast, free problem solving, for a little while, where we recorded some episodes solving problems, and then we did a free problem solving van in Brooklyn that we were driving around solving problems. So yeah, free problem solving is fun.
Did you have a feedback from somebody you helped solving problems?
Yeah, but more like in the moment feedback of just, you know, hey, this was great, this was helpful, can I join you? Like we had people like who joined the free problem solving, you know, or we had an intern who was, you know, sourcing people in the line, whatever. But like not like longitudinal feedback of following up with someone a year later. At least not that I can recall off the top of my head of someone coming back and actually seeing, you know, a long time later the results. Well, actually, I'll say like, so one thing that was kind of related to free problem solving. So my same friend, Matt, we did something called Action Camp a few years later, where we did this little summer camp with people who want to take action on stuff. And that one we had really good, like, exposure to helping kind of solve problems and then see what happens, which was a friend of ours, Christy, who lives in Fargo, North Dakota, who was like, happy with her job. It wasn't really anything she wanted to take action on, but like through talking about, hey, like things that you know, think you might want to do. She's like, someday when I retire, I want to open a flower shop. And so through like helping her think about like, well, what actions might you take? Like, you know, maybe go volunteer and support a wedding or do that, like do basic things. She ended up 2 years later starting her flower shop, Love Always Floral. And I think she now has like 3 retail locations in Fargo as a florist. And so like, seeing things like that is really cool, where sometimes, yeah, just talking about it, helping solve problems for people kind of helps them take something from your head, which is the most dangerous place for an idea to live, and kind of get it out into the world, and then you can start working on it. So
how do you prefer to help people solve their problems? By giving advices or by asking questions to take their ideas from their minds?
yeah, I think it depends on the context. I think either approach can be valid in different times. I mean, it's much easier for us to naturally, at least for me, it's much easier for us to like naturally just like come up with ideas and like, hey, here's what's happening. But also like you can only come up with really good ideas if you've asked a bunch of questions first and kind of understood the context. But it depends. Like you can also end up in a place where you just ask a bunch of questions forever and ever, and then you never give them anything that's useful. Like I know that's something that I know how we met through the cultivators community in Slack. Like there's this event Change-a-thon, right, that's focused on that kind of spirit. And I think one of the things that can end up happening there is, well, people are coming because they want ideas, they want suggestions, but people are trying to be kind and like ask a bunch of questions. But in that situation, I'm like, I'm not here to ask questions. Like, I'm just here to like generate as much as possible that's useful for this person, because in this context, that's what they came for. You know, in a longer term context, of course, you want deeper insights and understanding. So I think it totally depends on the situation.
Yeah, as you told about Action Camp, tell me more about it. What was it all about?
So this friend, Matt Kane, who's the person in my career who I've worked with, you know, probably the longest. We were like attached at the hip for 5 years, working together every day on all kinds of really cool stuff. And I think this was really his dream originally. I think he always had the dream of like having a summer camp, getting to design a summer camp, getting to put together like whatever you want those activities to be, whatever you want that to look like, that kind of thing. And so when he shared this dream with me, like, of course, I was immediately on board and wanted to support it and help and kind of make it happen. And so yeah, we just kind of started with like, all right, like, well, what do you need to do? Well, you need to find a camp. And so I remember like we drove around looking at camps. We got our car stuck in a ditch in the snow up in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. And then this super kind couple with an SUV pulled us out. And then we were out and they ended up getting stuck in the same ditch. And we felt so bad. And we sent them this like amazing gift basket and like Christmas cards. I think we still exchange Christmas cards and that kind of stuff. With like such this nice couple. But we ended up getting to see this camp, and it was like they're like, well, this is the 1 week of the year in between like when our students, like our summer students aren't here in our fall and whatever. And so we're like, all right, we'll take it for that period of time. And then it just became, how do we design this amazing experience for like all the cool people we've met in our lives, and just inviting people from the TED community who we knew, people from work who we knew, people from school who we knew, just like people who we thought would really appreciate, who brought this like kind of positive energy and like optimistic attitude and a desire to, shape the future and all that kind of stuff. And so we just brought together like 80 remarkable people, and then kind of crowdsourced all the programming that's like, all right, so in the mornings, we're going to have opportunities to learn from each other. And so that's going to be everything from learn how to memorize a deck of shuffled cards, to how to solve a Rubik's Cube, to how to set up an Etsy store, to whatever, like things that different people know how to do. You're going to get to learn from each other and do it. Then we're going to have time to just relax and kind of enjoy camp and play camp games and use the lake and the ropes course and the pool and just chill out and do whatever. And then in the evening, we had time where like you had to bring what's one specific idea you want to take action on. And we're going to make sure that we, build out a time to like leave camp with that one thing that you want to do. And so, yeah, we just built this like really cool long weekend experience around that. And it was pretty magical. So
What was the craziest stuff you did there?
Well, one of the fun things I remember happening there was a talent show, because it's camp, so there has to be a talent show. And so there's this one area where people get to kind of do whatever talents that they want. And this is summer of 2015. And so like the song that was sweeping the world that summer was that, oh, don't you dare look back, just keep your eyes on me. That like, shut up and dance. So there was this group of like 5 of us, and we all just wore different crazy costumes and rocked out to that song. And I think I was wearing a big crocodile outfit and came out for the guitar solo, and, just fun, silly things like that.
And tell me, who was usually wearing this dinosaur costume?
Yeah, so when I had the truck, I invested in a few of those dinosaur costumes, and my buddy Christian also had one of those dinosaur costumes. And so, yeah, he loved wearing that. We would love going around town, having the Jurassic Park truck chasing the dinosaur down the street and that kind of stuff, or just like going into the convenience store, like kind of, hunting the dinosaur or whatever. So yeah, those were good times.
Tell me more about Jurassic Park truck.
Yeah, at some point, some people when they go out and have a night and have fun and end up in those kind of conversations about politics, whatever. The next morning it's like, oh no, what have I done? Like, and usually the oh no, what have I done is I either registered a bunch of domain names, or we made a website like that's like a retirement home name generator. Like we made a random website, or like set up Craigslist alerts, or Google alerts of things that you don't even remember why. But at some point I set up a Craigslist alert for a Jurassic Park truck. And I think I had it set up for like a few years. And at one point, like one came up and I got the notification, and it just hit me at the right time. Then I'm like, oh, let me see. And it's in Pittsburgh, and I saw the pictures of it. And it's like, this is $500 for this thing. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm getting it. Like, and it was a comedy of errors of like all the problems with the car, and I had to put all this work into it and whatever, but it was totally worth it to just have the Ford Explorer that looks exactly like the one that was, taken on the track throughout, and getting to just drive that around town and like driving on the road and everyone waving at you or taking pictures of you is like, you feel like a little celebrity for that hour that you're out on the road. Or just parking it in a corporate parking lot and people are like, whose car is that? I'm like, oh, it's mine. Like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and how many dinosaurs chased you?
All the dinosaurs, Yuri. They were all looking for us.
Why do you passionate about action?
Because I think it's the gap for most people. I think it's the missing thing. Like, I know that a lot of people are really passionate about wanting to make change and passionate about wanting to make a difference, and people love coming up with ideas. And I think particularly as I started to get older, I was like, you've been talking about this for 5 years. Like, why are we having the same conversation about this idea? Like, so many people just really struggle with like breaking the inertia of actually like doing it and actually making it happen. And so part of my, insatiable curiosity was trying to, understand, why is that? And what is it that we can do that can help support that, right? And I think that just made me become really passionate about the topic of action, because I just think it's something that a lot of people need. And so I feel like evangelizing around how you take action is important.
Have you ever struggled by taking action yourself?
No, I mean, every day, like, and we're all our own worst hypocrite about the stuff that we talk about. We're not good at ourselves, or we don't take the time, or because we're knowledgeable enough, we're also self-aware enough to see, here are all of my deficiencies around stuff that I want to be taking action on. So it's a challenge for everybody. We all have more that we want to do than we possibly can do. And so it's also about like recognizing that and like, not feeling guilty about it or beating yourself up about it, but also around like, cool, well, like you say you want to make this happen. So like, what's going on? Like, what's happening here? And like, it's important to be making small progress on things. And I mean, I was just having this conversation with somebody yesterday. It's like, what happens to big, scary things when you put them off? Like, they just become bigger and scarier, right? Like, it's not helpful to keep this big thing out there. What's helpful is like breaking it down into small steps and getting started and getting a bad first draft out, or doing something that's making some progress. And I think like that's the thing that I get most passionate about, is when you start to see people kind of recognize how they can start making progress. Because I don't know, a lot of people, their default is like, I'm just going to think about this forever, and I'm going to get stressed about it and overwhelmed, and I'm going to break down. And it's like, just like do something, like do something to start. And I know it sounds simple and maybe patronizing to some people, and that's not my intention. And so you have to meet people where they're at and try to get them there. But like, yeah, I really think it's a big thing.
You just reminded me of Britney Spears song, Why Don't You Do Something? What did you feel while staying on Africa's highest point, Uru Peak of Mount Kilimanjaro?
Oh, hunger, relief. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. With a really good group of friends, we got to hike Kilimanjaro in I think 2017, and it was with my group of like TEDx organizer friends. And the most amazing part about that group is it's such a diverse international group. So most of us met in Doha in 2012. They invested in bringing together like 200 TEDx organizers from over 80 countries. And it felt like this kind of almost like UN summit, or this kind of thing where it's this totally global group. And so we have this little crew of 12 of us hiking Kilimanjaro, where there's, an American, a Dutch guy, a Tunisian, a Canadian, a Brazilian. Like, it's this totally international group, and people are like, who are you? Or where? And so we always have stories of like, oh, you ever heard of Mars One? Like, we're training to go to Mars, and we're getting like, oh my God, thank you for your service. like people have a hard time wrapping their head around like, who is this international group of people that are just laughing so loudly and like screaming at each other these stories. Like, that's, you know, so that's like the vibe. And it was awesome to get up there, to make it up. I mean, it's a beautiful hike. We had tremendous support from, you know, when you hike Kilimanjaro, if your group is 8, well, your group is actually like 30, because you have 22 people who are there setting up your camp and carrying your stuff and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so it's a massive support system. And yeah, it was amazing. My buddy, and what's cool is like the people in that group are all such amazing people. So my buddy Nate, who was in that group, who's also the one I did the Mongol rally with, he runs the World Central Kitchen. So he's actually been in Ukraine for the last like 5 months, just like working on food supply chain and getting food out there. And so working with Jose Andres on that stuff. So anytime that there's a crisis in the world, they just go feed people. And now he's in this like Emmy nominated documentary and getting like accommodations from the White House and this kind of stuff. And I'm like, Nate, like really him? But but it's cool. It's cool to see that kind of stuff happen, right? So yeah, like our group is it's a great group.
You mentioned Mongol Rally. It's a 20,000 kilometers adventure from the UK to Mongolia, 23 countries. Tell me, why Fiat Panda?
Well, the Mongol Rally by design is all the things you mentioned, and you have to do all of that in a car that is deliberately not up to the task. So you have to do it in a car that has a less than 1 liter engine, that is like old and beat up, because it makes it more fun, more unlikely to succeed. I think 1/3 of teams that start finish, maybe, because, you know, there's a lot of variables along the way. But yeah, the Fiat Panda was one I think we found it on eBay, and we went out. We were in Germany for a meeting, and went out and found it in the meeting, and then we drove it up to London for the starting point and got it all fixed up and got it ready. And it was a great little car. I miss that little car. I love that little Fiat Panda.
What is the story behind of this rally? Why did you decide to do it?
The way my brain works, I don't know how I could hear about it and not want to do it. Like, it's hard for me to imagine a conversation where someone's like, you ever heard of this rally? You drive in a beat up car from London to Mongolia and you get to experience all these places and do all this stuff, and you can raise money for charity. Like I couldn't imagine saying like, oh, cool. Like, what's the weather today? You know, like, it's like, wait, what? Like, what? Okay, what year are we doing this? Okay, what do we need to do to get ready? Okay, cool. Like, we're making it happen. And of course, the best part about it, and how like community was such a big part of it too, because we built it all around getting to visit TEDx organizers. You know, in those days, in the early days of TEDx, is a movement and a community that is like unrivaled and unparalleled. And what TEDx has become is kind of like, you know, it's just different now, 14 years later, and a lot of the original people have moved on, and, you know, it's become corporatized and all this kind of stuff, just in a different way. But in those days in particular, this was just like the people in a community who care deeply about advancing ideas from their community, who want to see interesting things that are happening in their local community burst onto a global stage. And so you have these individual community organizers, and then all of them are part of this own community of community organizers, that kind of meta thing of, we're all people who know our city, our town, our place like super well, and we care about advancing people from our place. And now we're getting together and do things together. Like, there's really nothing like it. And so imagine that entire journey, every city we stop in, from Vilnius to, you know, to Kyiv to Almaty, or wherever along the way. You drive all day, and then you arrive for dinner at whatever address you're told to show up at. And then you sit down with 12 people who are the most remarkable people from that city, or among the most remarkable people from that city. They're all entrepreneurs, or people working on this nonprofit, or artists, or people doing this cool thing. And you just end up in this like amazing conversation about politics and the world and what's happening. And then you go sleep on a couch somewhere, and then you wake up and drive 9 hours and do the same thing again the next night. And like that was the trip, because those TEDx organizers were kind of the pillars, those anchor points of getting to meet and do that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, there's nothing like it. Like, it was amazing.
Who is the person you remember the most of this trip?
That's a really good question. I mean, other than Nate, and obviously spending a lot of time, sitting like 2 inches away from Nate in a tiny car, which was great. I think person I remember most. Oh, my brain is flashing through so many good candidates.
It's hard to choose.
I mean, maybe it's a little bit of a cop-out answer. I'll give kind of a stand-in answer for like the person I remember most is like the border guard, and like I'll use border guard as a stand-in for like every border guard along the way, which like is generally speaking a like low-paid, reasonably miserable person. At many countries they want to bribe. At many countries they want to let's take everything out of the car here and talk about this here and do this and kind of get this out. And like border guards shaped so much of that, so much of that experience of 23 countries over the course of 6 weeks is just how many borders we had to cross and what that experience was like. Actually, I remember going into Ukraine. Now, granted, this is the summer of 2014, so this is just post Poroshenko. And I had been in Kyiv in 2013 and the kind of beautiful flowers and everything downtown. And then being there in 2014 and it's burned tires and piles and pianos and just like, it's a totally different scene. And of course, the Malaysian airliner getting shot down, which got shot down while we were there. And so it was a heavy time. But so we're coming into Ukraine, and we spent a night sitting at that border. I think we got there at like 8 p.m. and just waiting until they finally got around to us and kind of helping us in. Must have been like 10 a.m. So I think we spent 14 hours just like sleeping in the car at that border, getting in. And then we couldn't get out the border that we wanted to because of the attack and what was happening in Crimea and everything. And so we had to actually go around and kind of back through into Moldova, and then we had this experience in Transnistria, and the whole region is obviously like it's fascinating, and I know so little compared to getting to talk to you, who knows so much about everything happening. But like the experience at these borders. I mean, even that Transnistria border, which is a fake border, but they check your passport and they put a little stamp in, and it's like, what the hell is this? This is not real. But like to them it is, right? And you go into Tiraspol and it's their own currency and their own world. And but yeah, the kind of border experiences are the things that stand out the most.
Why did these border people stop you?
Well, it's their job. I mean, so they have but they're required to. You're driving through a checkpoint, like they have to check your passport and check kind of whatever and kind of let you in. But there's also a lot of shenanigans that go into that aren't their job. And they're recognizing like, what is this crazy Fiat Panda with these 2 Americans in it, and it has stickers all over it and all this crazy stuff. Like, I think their awareness of the situation is like, okay, these are a couple people with like, a decent amount of privilege and stuff that we could stand to gain from in some way. And so, I can understand the motivations and the context that surrounds it.
Yeah. I saw in the video of your rally that you met cops in Kazakhstan and they wanted your sunglasses. Tell me this story.
Yeah, a lot of places, and a lot of these kind of former CIS countries, you get into Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan and Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, like it's still pretty underdeveloped in a lot of these places. And so, police, and I'm using air quotes when I say police, because like who knows even, right? Like one of my favorite things in that part of the world is like the wooden police car that's on the side of the road to try to make you slow down, because from a distance you can't tell that it's just like a sign. So like
Yeah.
that's funny. But then there'll be people just standing on the road, like waving, flagging, like they don't have a radar, they don't have any like authority, but they're just kind of like waving, like, oh, you're going too fast, I'm going to pull you over. So this is one of those situations of like someone just kind of waving us to pull over on a road that you can't even go that fast on because there's so many potholes and just drive, right? So it's like you can't even go that fast anyway. So it's just someone who sees this unique car and they want a conversation and they're lonely and they're bored. And so, yeah, a number of those times I ended up like sitting in a police car trying to work my way through a conversation and then having to give whatever I needed to give to get out of that situation, which part of it is like we had a big crate of like, neither of us smoke, but we had this big crate of cigarettes to give out. Cigarettes is sometimes popular, sometimes people want sunglasses, cologne, kind of whatever you can give, like. But yeah, I think in that situation I had to give away my sunglasses, which meant squinting for a big part of that drive the rest of the day.
Have you tasted KFC? I mean Kyrgyz fried chicken.
Yes, delicious. The original recipe, Yuri. You should try it. Like 13 secret ingredients.
Yeah. Where is your love for cars and adventures and car adventures exactly from?
Yeah, I think definitely the umbrella love is the love for adventure. And I don't know. I think it's directly linked to the curiosity, right? Like adventure is a great place to feed that insatiable kind of desire for curiosity, and it's fun. Like I don't know. I guess I've become somewhat of like an adrenaline junkie too. I just want like any experience. I want to try one, like skydiving, sure. Like bungee jumping, yes. Like we're gonna climb that, of course. Like can we go to the depths of the ocean? Like I can't wait to go to space. Like I can't, like any of those kinds of things. I think they're new experiences, and I think they help inform how we see the world and how we can shape futures and how we can generate ideas to solve big problems. And also like it's fun, and part of life should be fun, and getting to laugh and smile and all that kind of stuff, and collect good stories and good people. So I don't know, it's all swirled up in that. I think it's also like I probably grew up in a context in which I wouldn't have even dreamt of those things or understood those things, or I couldn't have pointed out Mongolia on a map or would have known what the word Mongol even meant, right? Like I had no frame of reference for any of those things. So as I started to gain a better frame of reference, and as I think really like becoming part of the TEDx community, and that group of these kind of global organizers was probably the biggest linchpin that just gave me such a bigger view of the world. It's like those videos of a little kid putting on glasses for the first time and getting to see color or getting to see things sharply. Like, I think that felt like oh, like this kind of like, this is what global citizenship means. And this is the like possible surface area of things you can do with your time on Earth. And like, yeah, give me more of like doing those kinds of things. Cause like adventure is where it's at.
Are you fluent in Espanol?
Fluent, no. I would say Uber driver fluent, yes. Like having a basic conversation, making the same joke time and time again, yes. Yeah, ¿habla español? Un poquito? No.
I understand what you're asked, but no. So, what does helping people mean to you?
I mean, I think it's more about what it means to them, because I think well-intentioned, you can also like, oh, I want to help people, and it's not helpful. So I think it probably just means having a good intention, which is like genuinely wanting to help, and then making sure that your intention is kind of married with what it is that they actually need. So like probably a good understanding of a challenge, and then just trying to do something. Yeah, I mean, I think we all probably have our biases in those situations. My bias in those situations is certainly going to be focused more on action and doing something, but that isn't always the right tool for the job either. And so there's been times when, despite my intention to be helpful, that I have not been helpful. So I can definitely recognize that. But I think with that intention and kind of with that compass and that desire, like, it's a pretty good way to live life. So
What do you feel when people thank you for your help?
when people thank me, yeah, I mean, appreciation, but not much. Like I like, I don't have a good relationship with like thank you or like I kind of like brush it off and move quickly and kind of redirect, because like I'm more interested in kind of like momentum and kind of continuing and that kind of stuff. I probably yeah, I mean, obviously, like it's good to know that like, okay, something is well received and it's important and that kind of stuff, and that helps feed, okay, how do we want to approach things moving forward, right? But yeah, I don't know, I feel maybe a little bit embarrassed.
I have so many questions to ask, and I really wish to have the sky as the limit to our conversation, but time is the limit. So let's jump to the rapid fire questions. Are you
Okay.
ready?
I'm ready.
Receive or give presents?
Receive or give friends?
Presents.
Oh, presents, give.
Ford Explorer or Fiat Panda?
Fiat Panda.
What are your favorite color and song?
Navy blue and song. For right now, let's say that Shut Up and Dance With Me song, because now it's in my head.
Yeah, I totally get it. If you were a superhero, what superpower would you have?
Teleportation.
Name two people from the community world whose life journeys you'd like to hear about.
Yuri Lazaruk and Lisa Barocca.
Cheater. But I understand.
Those are two lives that I desperately want to know more about. I could give you more names. Faten Ben Hamza, who is in France right now, doing this community work. She's amazing. Nate Mook, who's my friend on the, like, there's so many people in the community world who I admire. There's a couple new names for you.
Thank you very much. Frankly speaking, I told Lisa a lot that we will definitely have this conversation, so share on the list already. Is there one question that I definitely should have asked you but didn't?
No, I just wish there was more time for me to reverse the questions back to you and hear your answers. But I think this was, like you said at the outset, this is not the typical podcast, so this was good. This was fun.
Cool. Okay, Steve, thank you very much for your time. And it's so amazing to get to know you closer, to jump into your life experience, because there are so many things that you experienced, and I can't even imagine what will be in the future. So I'm really curious to continue our conversation sometime later and to make volume 2 so that you can, and even volume 3 when we change seats. It will be super interesting. So thank you very much for having this conversation.
I can't wait. Thank you.
Cool. So see you somewhere in the community world. Bye.
Bye.